I had been calling for 3 days straight. Marcus had been in the hospital for 2 weeks. Pneumonia, they said. And every time I dialed Tasha's number, it went to voicemail. Every single time. I left messages. I texted. I even called the hospital directly, but they told me only immediate family could get updates, and apparently, I didn't count. On the 4th day, she finally picked up. Evelyn. Her voice was flat, like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed. Tasha, thank God. How is he? Can I come see him today? I've been trying to reach you. He's gone. The words didn't land right. They hovered somewhere between my ear and my brain, refusing to settle. Gone where? Did they transfer him to another hospital? There was a pause, a long one, the kind that makes your stomach drop before your mind catches up. He died on Sunday. Sunday. That was 3 days ago. My hands started shaking. The phone felt heavy, like it might slip right through my fingers onto the kitchen floor. Why didn't you? When is the funeral? I need to. He was buried yesterday. The line went quiet. I could hear her breathing, steady, calm, like she was telling me the grocery store had run out of milk. You buried my son, without telling me. We kept it small, just close family, you understand. Close family. I raised that boy. I held him when he cried. I taught him to read, to pray, to tie his shoes. I was there when his father left. I was there through every fever, every heartbreak, every middle-of-the-night phone call when he needed his mama. And she buried him like I was nobody. Tasha, how could you? I have to go, Evelyn. There's a lot to handle right now. The line went dead. I sat there at my kitchen table, staring at the phone in my hand, waiting for it to make sense, waiting for the world to shift back into place. But it didn't. The afternoon light came through the window the same way it always did. The clock on the wall kept ticking. The neighbor's dog kept barking. Everything was the same. Except my son was gone, and I found out through a phone line 3 days too late. I didn't cry right away. The tears came later in the dark, when I finally let myself believe it. But in that moment, sitting in my kitchen with the sun still shining, I just felt erased. Like someone had taken an eraser to my name in the story of my own child's life. I looked down at my hands that had held him, fed him, bandaged his scraped knees, hands that had signed every permission slip, every report card, every birthday card. And somehow, those hands weren't good enough to lay him to rest. Miss Ruth called an hour later. She'd heard through the church network. Baby, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you didn't know. We all thought you were out of town. Out of town. That's what Tasha had told people. That I was traveling. That I couldn't make it. I hadn't left Riverside in 6 months. Miss Ruth kept talking, her voice soft and careful. But I wasn't really listening anymore. I was thinking about Marcus. About the last time I saw him, 2 months ago, when he came by for Sunday dinner. He'd looked tired, thin, but he smiled when I made his favorite, smothered chicken and rice. Before he left, he hugged me tight, tighter than usual. Mama, he said, you still got that envelope I gave you? The one in your dresser? Of course, baby. It's right where you left it. He nodded, kissed my forehead. Good. Keep it safe. You might need it one day. I didn't know what he meant then. But sitting there, listening to Miss Ruth's voice fade into the background, I remembered. The drawer was still locked, and that's how I found out my son was gone. Through a phone line, 3 days late, with a lie attached to his name. I drove to their house the next morning. My hands were still shaking, but I had to see it, had to stand where they'd stood, had to know if it was real. The gate was locked, not just closed, locked, with a chain and a padlock I'd never seen before. I stood there on the sidewalk, staring at the black iron bars, and felt the ground tilt under me. This was Marcus's house, the house I'd helped him pick out. The house where I used to come for Sunday dinners before Tasha decided I wasn't welcome anymore. Now, I couldn't even get past the gate. I heard a voice from across the fence. Mrs. Delgado, the neighbor, peeking through her side yard. Miss Evelyn? I turned. She looked uncomfortable, like she didn't know whether to come closer or go back inside. Yes, ma'am. She glanced at Tasha's house, then back at me. Her voice dropped low. I'm so sorry about Marcus. He was a good man. Thank you. She hesitated, then stepped a little closer, her hands twisting the dish towel she was holding. The service, it was right there, in the backyard, Monday afternoon. Monday, while I was sitting at home, waiting for a phone call that never came. How many people were there? Maybe 20. Mostly her side of the family. I didn't see you, and I thought, well, she said you were out of town. Out of town. Again. I nodded slowly, my eyes still fixed on that locked gate. I never left town, Mrs. Delgado. I was 10 minutes away. Her face crumpled. She opened her mouth, closed it, then shook her head. That's not right. That's just not right. No, it wasn't. But standing there, locked out of my own son's memorial, I realized something. This wasn't an oversight. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was intentional. Tasha had buried my son in secret, told everyone I wasn't there, and locked the gate behind her. I looked at the house one more time. The curtains were drawn. The driveway was empty. It looked like no one lived there at all. I turned and walked back to my car. Mrs. Delgado called after me, her voice soft and sad. If you need anything, Miss Evelyn. I know. Thank you. I sat in my car for a long time before I started the engine. I kept staring at that gate, at the chain, at the lock, and I thought about what Marcus had said. You might need it one day. I drove home in silence. No radio, no tears. Just the hum of the engine and the weight of everything I didn't say. When I got home, I walked straight to my bedroom, opened the top drawer of my dresser, pulled out the small wooden box in the back. Inside was the envelope, sealed, brown, a little worn at the edges. I held it in my hands and felt my son's presence in the weight of it. He knew. Somehow he knew this day would come. I didn't open it. Not yet. But I set it on my nightstand, right next to the photo of Marcus at his college graduation, smiling wide in his cap and gown. I sat on the edge of my bed and finally let myself cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, steady tears that came from somewhere deep and old. When I was done, I wiped my face and stood up. I wasn't angry yet. I was just learning. Learning that grief and betrayal can live in the same breath. Learning that some people will bury your child and lock you out without losing a single night's sleep. And learning that sometimes the people you think you know best are strangers wearing familiar faces. I never left town. I just learned to stop knocking on closed doors. But that envelope? That was a door I was about to open. I couldn't stop thinking about the last time Marcus called me. It was late, past 11. I remember because I'd already taken my medication and was getting ready for bed when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Mama, you still up? His voice sounded different, tired, maybe even afraid. Baby, what's wrong? Nothing. I wanted to hear your voice. I sat down on the bed, my heart already starting to race the way a mother's does when she knows something's not right. Marcus, talk to me. He was quiet for a moment. I could hear him breathing. Slow, deliberate, like he was choosing his words carefully. Mama, you remember that envelope I gave you? The one I asked you to keep in your dresser? Yes, it's still there. You want me to open it? No, not yet. Just promise me you won't throw it away. And if something happens to me, don't talk like that. Mama, listen. If something happens, Reverend Coleman knows what to do. You hear me? Go to him. Marcus, you're scaring me. What's going on? Another pause. Longer this time. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. But you need to tell me what's happening. I'm okay. I promise. I just needed to hear your voice. He hung up before I could say anything else. I sat there holding the phone, staring at it like it might ring again, like he might call back and explain. But he didn't. I should have driven over there. Should have ignored the locked gate and Tasha's cold stares and demanded to see my son. But I didn't. I told myself he was fine, that he was just stressed, that he'd call me in the morning. He never did. 2 weeks later, he was in the hospital. 2 weeks after that, he was gone. And I never got to ask him what he meant. Now, sitting at my kitchen table with that envelope in front of me, I understood. He'd been preparing me, Not for his death. Nobody prepares for that. But for what would come after. For Tasha. I picked up the envelope. It was heavier than I remembered. I turned it over in my hands, feeling the weight of whatever was inside. There was no name on it, no writing, just the seal, still intact after all these months. I thought about opening it right then. Thought about ripping it open and reading whatever truth my son had left behind. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the quiet. Maybe it was the way the afternoon light was slanting through the kitchen window, soft and golden, the way it used to when Marcus was a boy and I'd help him with his homework at this very table. Or maybe it was just the feeling that once I opened it, there would be no going back. So I set it down, smoothed my hand over the worn paper, and I made myself a cup of tea. I needed to think, needed to remember. Marcus had been different after he married Tasha. Quieter, more distant. He'd stop by less and less. Phone calls got shorter. Holidays became tense. I told myself it was natural, that married men pull away from their mothers, that I needed to give them space. But there were signs. The way he'd glance at his phone nervously when we were talking. The way he'd cut visits short. The way he stopped inviting me over. And that time, God, I'd almost forgotten, when I stopped by unannounced and Tasha answered the door. "He's not here, Evelyn." "Oh, well, I brought him some. We're busy today. You should call first." She closed the door before I could respond. When I asked Marcus about it later, he just said, "Mama, you know how she is. She likes her space." I didn't push. I should have, but I didn't. And now he was gone, and all I had left was this envelope and a drawer full of memories. I picked up my phone, scrolled to Reverend Coleman's number. He answered on the second ring. "Evelyn, I've been expecting your call." My breath caught. "You knew?" "Marcus came to see me. About 6 months ago. He wanted to make sure you'd be taken care of. No matter what. What did he tell you?" "I think you need to open that envelope first. Then come see me. Reverend, tomorrow, 10 o'clock. I'll be here." He hung up. I sat there, staring at the envelope again. The ink had faded on the seal. But the truth inside? That hadn't faded at all. The drawer was still locked. But tomorrow, I'd open it. And I'd finally hear what my son needed to say. I didn't sleep that night. I kept getting up, walking to the nightstand, picking up the envelope, then setting it back down. It sat there in the lamplight like a living thing, breathing, waiting. At 5 a.m, I gave up on sleep. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, watched the sky turn from black to gray to that soft, pale blue that comes just before sunrise, and then I opened it. The seal broke clean. Inside, there were 2 pieces of paper. The first was a letter, handwritten, Marcus's handwriting, neat, careful, the same way he used to write his school reports. "Mama, if you're reading this, something happened to me, and Tasha didn't tell you. I know her. I know how she thinks. She'll try to erase you, to act like you don't matter, like you never mattered. But you're the only person who ever loved me without conditions. I need you to know. I'm sorry. Sorry I let her pull me away. Sorry I didn't stand up for you the way you always stood up for me. Sorry I was too tired to fight anymore. The second paper is a copy of my will. Reverend Coleman has the notarized original. I left you half of everything, the house, the savings, the insurance. Tasha doesn't know. I made sure of that. If she tries to keep you out, if she tries to take it all, you show her this, and you don't apologize. I love you, Mama. I always did. Even when I couldn't say it out loud. Marcus, I read it 3 times. Then I set it down and stared at the second paper. It was a photocopy of a will, dated 8 months ago, witnessed by Reverend Coleman and someone named Andrea Pierce, a notary public. It was all there, clear as daylight. To my mother, Evelyn Constance Harris, I leave 50% of all assets, properties, and financial accounts, including, but not limited to, the property located at 428 Maple Street, all savings and checking accounts held in my name, and all life insurance benefits. 50%. Half of everything. I sat back in my chair and let it sink in. Marcus had protected me. Even when I thought he'd forgotten about me, even when I thought I'd lost him to her, he'd been thinking ahead, planning, making sure I wouldn't be left with nothing. And Tasha had no idea. That's why she buried him in secret. That's why she locked the gate. That's why she told everyone I was out of town. She thought if she could erase me fast enough, I'd never find out. But Marcus knew her better than that. He'd left me the proof. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. Then I got dressed. By 9:30, I was sitting in Reverend Coleman's office at the church. He looked older than I remembered, grayer, but his eyes were still sharp, still kind. "You opened it," he said. "I did." "Then you know." I nodded. He pulled a file from his desk drawer, thick, official looking. "This is the original, notarized and filed with the county. Tasha can't touch it. She can contest it, but it won't matter. Marcus was of sound mind when he wrote it. I made sure of that. Did he tell you why?" Reverend Coleman leaned back in his chair, his hands folded in his lap. He said he loved her, but he didn't trust her. Said she'd been moving money around, closing him out of decisions. He felt controlled. The word landed heavy. He felt trapped. He felt alone. I closed my eyes, felt the weight of it settle into my chest. "He called me," I said quietly. "A few weeks before he went to the hospital. He said if anything happened, I should come to you. He wanted you to know the truth, and he wanted you to have what's yours." I looked down at the file in my hands, at my son's signature at the bottom of the page, steady, clear. "What do I do now?" Reverend Coleman smiled, but it was a sad smile. "You take this to a lawyer, you file it with probate court, and you let the law do what it's supposed to do. She won't let it go easy." "No, she won't." "Good." He raised an eyebrow. "Good?" I stood up, tucking the file under my arm. "Because I'm done being quiet." I walked out of that church with my son's will in my hands and his voice in my head. "You don't apologize." The ink had faded on the seal, but the truth was just getting started. I went to the bank on Thursday morning, First National, the same place where Marcus and I had opened his first savings account when he was 16. He'd saved up $200 from his summer job, and he was so proud. I remember him signing his name on the card, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Now, I was walking through those same doors, holding a copy of his will, trying to find out what Tasha had already taken. The manager, Mr. Whitmore, recognized me right away. "Mrs. Harris, I'm so sorry for your loss." "Thank you." He gestured toward his office. Once we were inside with the door closed, I laid the will on his desk. "I need to know what accounts Marcus had here, and I need to know if anyone's accessed them since he passed." Mr. Whitmore's face tightened. He adjusted his glasses and pulled up something on his computer. "Mrs. Harris, I'm not sure I can. I'm listed as a beneficiary, 50%. This is a legal document, signed and notarized. If you'd like, I can have my lawyer contact you." He paused, looked at the will again, then back at his screen. "Give me a moment." The room was too quiet. I could hear the clock on the wall, the hum of the computer, my own heartbeat in my ears. Finally, he spoke. There were 3 accounts in Marcus's name, 2 checking, 1 savings. Total balance was approximately $74,000. 74,000. I kept my face still, but my heart was racing. "Was," I said. "Past tense." Mr. Whitmore nodded slowly. "Mrs. Tasha Harris came in on Tuesday. She had a death certificate and a power of attorney document. She closed all 3 accounts and transferred the funds to her personal account. Tuesday, the day after he was buried. She hadn't wasted any time." "And the life insurance?" "That would be handled through the insurance company directly, not through us. But if she's listed as the primary beneficiary," "She is. But I'm listed as secondary, 50%. He looked uncomfortable now, like he was realizing he might have just helped someone commit fraud. "Mrs. Harris, I'm going to be honest with you. She had the paperwork. It looked legitimate. If we'd known—" "You didn't know. But now you do." I stood up, took a photo of the computer screen with my phone. I saw his eyes widen, but he didn't stop me, and picked up the will. "I'll be in touch." I walked out of that bank with fire in my chest. $74,000. Gone. In one visit. But Tasha forgot something. She forgot that signatures don't lie. And she forgot that Marcus had planned for this. I called a lawyer as soon as I got to my car. A woman named Patricia Odom, who went to my church. I'd never needed a lawyer before, but I'd seen her handle a property dispute for Miss Ruth last year, and she didn't mess around. She answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Harris, I heard about Marcus. I'm so sorry." "Thank you, Patricia. I need your help." "I'm listening." I told her everything. The secret burial, the locked gate, the will, the bank. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then she said, "Forward me everything you have. Photos of the will, the notary stamp, the bank records. I'll file a motion with probate court tomorrow." "How long will this take?" "Depends on how hard she fights. But Mrs. Harris, we're going to win this." "How can you be sure?" "Because your son made sure of it. He left a paper trail. And paper trails don't lie." I hung up and sat there in the parking lot, staring at the bank building. Tasha thought she was clever, thought she could move fast and bury the truth along with my son. But she didn't know that Marcus had already built the case against her. One document at a time, one signature at a time. She forgot that signatures don't lie, and she was about to learn that neither do mothers. Sunday morning, I went to church. I hadn't missed a Sunday in 20 years, and I wasn't about to start now. Not even with the weight of the week pressing down on my shoulders like a heavy coat I couldn't take off. I sat in my usual pew. Third row from the back, right side. The same seat where Marcus used to sit next to me when he was a boy, swinging his legs because they didn't reach the floor yet. People stared. Not openly, not rudely, but I felt their eyes, heard the whispers that stopped when I got too close. They knew. Of course they knew. Church gossip travels faster than prayer requests. Miss Ruth slid into the pew next to me halfway through the opening hymn. She didn't say anything, just reached over and squeezed my hand. After service, Reverend Coleman asked to see me in his office. I followed him through the fellowship hall, past the coffee station and the folding tables where people were gathering for their after-church chatter. I felt their eyes on my back the whole way. In his office, he closed the door and gestured for me to sit. "How are you holding up?" "I'm still standing." He nodded, poured 2 cups of coffee from the pot on his desk without asking if I wanted one. He knew I did. "Evelyn, I need to tell you something. Something Marcus told me when he came to see me." I set my coffee down, untouched. "Go ahead." Reverend Coleman leaned forward, his hands folded on the desk. He was afraid. Of what? Of her, of Tasha. He said she'd been isolating him, monitoring his phone calls, getting angry when he spent too much time with friends or family. He said it had gotten worse over the past year. My stomach turned. Did he say he wanted to leave? He said he felt trapped, that he'd tried to talk to her about it, but she'd threatened to take everything, the house, his reputation. She'd tell people he was unstable, unfit. So he stayed. He stayed because he didn't think he had a choice, but he wanted to protect you. He said, "If something happens to me, don't let her erase my mother. She's all I have left of who I really was." I had to look away, had to focus on the bookshelf behind him, the rows of Bibles and theology books, anything to keep the tears from coming. Reverend Coleman waited, patient, kind. When I finally looked back, he was holding another envelope. He left this with me too. Said if you ever needed it, I should give it to you. I took it. This one was thinner, just a single sheet of paper inside. It was a note, dated 6 months ago. "To whom it may concern, I, Marcus Anthony Harris, am writing this of my own free will and sound mind. I am not being coerced. I have become increasingly concerned about my wife's control over my personal and financial affairs. She has restricted my access to family and friends and has made threats about my reputation should I attempt to leave. I am leaving a copy of my will with Reverend Thomas Coleman of Grace Community Church. I am doing this to ensure my mother, Evelyn Harris, is provided for in the event of my death. If I die under unclear circumstances, I ask that this letter be shared with the appropriate authorities. Marcus Harris." My hands started shaking. Did he think she would? I don't know, but he wanted it on record, just in case. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. "Reverend, If something was wrong, if he was sick and she didn't call me, we don't know that, but we could find out. He looked at me for a long time, then he nodded. I'll make some calls, quietly, see what I can learn about his hospital stay, the cause of death, if there's anything unusual. Thank you. I stood to leave, but he stopped me. Evelyn, be careful. If she finds out you have all this, let her find out. He smiled, but it was a worried smile. Your son would be proud of you. No, I said quietly. He'd be ashamed it came to this. I walked out of that church with 2 envelopes in my purse and a weight in my chest that felt like it might never lift. But I also walked out with something else. Clarity. Marcus hadn't just left me money. He'd left me the truth. And now I had to decide what to do with it. He said, if I can't speak for myself, let my mother have the last word. So that's what I was going to do. I was going to speak for him, 1 word at a time. I didn't go to the cemetery right away. I wanted to. God knows I wanted to. But every time I thought about it, about standing over the earth where they'd put my son without telling me, I felt like the ground might open up and swallow me whole. But on Wednesday afternoon, I made myself go. Miss Ruth drove me. She didn't ask if I wanted company. She just showed up at my door with her purse and her sensible shoes and said, "Come on, baby, I'm going with you." The cemetery was quiet, too quiet. Just the sound of wind through the trees and the distant hum of traffic from the highway. Miss Ruth waited by the car while I walked toward the fresh plot. I saw the headstone from 20 feet away. Simple, gray granite, clean edges. Marcus Anthony Harris, 1983, 2025, beloved husband. That's it. That's all it said. Beloved husband, not son, not brother, not friend, just husband. Like that was the only thing he ever was. I stood there staring at those 2 words, and something inside me cracked wide open. She'd erased me. Even in stone, she tried to erase me. There were no flowers, no sign that anyone had been there since the burial, just bare earth and a headstone that told half a truth. I knelt down. The ground was still soft, still raw, like a wound that hadn't healed yet. I pressed my hand against the dirt. "I'm sorry, baby," I whispered. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there." The wind picked up, rustled the leaves overhead. I closed my eyes and let myself remember him. Not the thin, tired man he'd become, but the boy who used to run through my kitchen laughing. The teenager who brought me flowers on Mother's Day even when he had to walk 2 miles to the store. The young man who called me every Sunday night, no matter what. "I found your letters," I said quietly. "I know what you wanted me to do, and I'm going to do it. I promise." Miss Ruth's footsteps crunched on the gravel path behind me. "You okay, honey?" I stood up, brushing the dirt from my knees. "No, but I will be." She looked at the headstone, read the inscription. Her face tightened. "That's not right." "No, it's not. Are you going to fix it?" I looked at the stone one more time, at the space where my name should have been, where the word son should have been. "Yes," I said. "I'm going to fix all of it." We drove home in silence. But that night, I called a monument company, asked about adding to an existing headstone. They said it was possible, but I'd need permission from the property owner. "Who owns the plot?" the man asked. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." I called the cemetery office the next morning. The woman on the phone was polite but firm. The plot was purchased by Mrs. Tasha Harris on October 10th, 10 days before Marcus died. I felt my blood run cold. "She bought it before he passed?" "Yes, ma'am. Is there a problem?" I didn't answer right away. I was too busy doing the math in my head. He went into the hospital on October 8th. She bought the cemetery plot on October 10th. He died on October 20th. She knew. Maybe not the exact day, but she knew it was coming, and she made sure she controlled every part of it. "Ma'am?" The woman's voice pulled me back. "No," I said quietly. "No problem. Thank you." I hung up and sat at my kitchen table, staring at the calendar I'd been marking off. Tracking dates, building a timeline. October 10th. The plot. October 15th. Miss Ruth's flower shop receipt. Tasha had ordered funeral arrangements 5 days before Marcus died. October 20th. His death. October 21st. The secret burial. October 22nd. The bank account's emptied. She hadn't just moved fast after he died. She'd been planning it before he was even gone. I picked up my phone and called Patricia, my lawyer. I need you to request his medical records, all of them. Evelyn, are you sure? That's going to open. I'm sure. I need to know what happened in that hospital. And I need to know if she was the one making his medical decisions. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Okay, I'll file the request, but this is going to take time. I've got time. And Evelyn, if we find something, then we deal with it. I hung up and looked at the photo of Marcus on my mantel. Him at his college graduation, smiling wide, full of hope. I'm not done yet, baby, I whispered. Not even close. Even in stone. She tried to erase me. But stone can be changed, and so can the story. Miss Ruth came by on Friday afternoon with a manila folder under her arm. You need to see something, she said, before I could even offer her tea. We sat at my kitchen table, and she pulled out a piece of paper. A receipt. From Blooms and Petals, the flower shop on Main Street. I stopped by there yesterday, she said. Mary, you know Mary, she runs the shop. She remembered Tasha coming in, said it stuck with her because of the timing. I looked at the receipt. Date, October 15th, 2025. Customer, Tasha Harris. Order, funeral spray, white lilies and roses. Delivery, October 21st, 2025. 428 Maple Street, October 15th. 5 days before Marcus died. 5 days before. I read it again, then again. Like the numbers might change if I stared long enough. Mary said Tasha was very specific, Miss Ruth continued. Said she wanted it ready by the 21st, no later, said there was a service that afternoon. How did she know? I whispered. That's what I asked Mary. She said Tasha told her the doctors had given them a timeline, said he was declining fast and they were making arrangements. I set the receipt down carefully, like it might burn my fingers. The hospital didn't tell me any of that. She wouldn't let them tell me anything. I know, baby. I stood up and walked to the window, stared out at the street, at the ordinary world going about its ordinary business. Somewhere inside me, something was shifting. The grief was still there, would always be there, but now there was something else underneath it. Anger. Not the hot, screaming kind, the cold, clarifying kind, the kind that makes you see things clearly for the first time. She knew the date, I said, still staring out the window. Before the rest of us, she knew when my son was going to die, and she planned his funeral around it. Miss Ruth came to stand beside me. What are you going to do? I'm going to find out how she knew. That afternoon, I called Patricia again. I have a flower shop receipt, dated 5 days before Marcus died, for funeral flowers. There was a long pause on the other end. She ordered funeral arrangements before he passed? Yes. Evelyn, that's not normal. Even if the doctors gave a timeline, most people don't order flowers until after. I know. I'm going to request his hospital records immediately, and I'm going to add a flag for potential medical decision-making irregularities. What does that mean? It means if she made any decisions about his care that seem questionable, if she refused treatments, if she signed DNR orders without proper consultation, we're going to find out. I closed my eyes. Felt the weight of what we were really talking about. You think she let him die? I think we need to know what happened in that hospital room. And I think a judge is going to want to know why she was ordering flowers before he was gone. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table with the receipt in front of me. Marcus had been sick. That was true. Pneumonia, they said. But he was only 42. Healthy before that. Strong. People recover from pneumonia every day. Unless someone decides they won't. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my messages. Found the ones I'd sent Tasha during those 2 weeks when Marcus was in the hospital. How is he doing? Can I visit? Please let me know if there's any change. I'm praying for him. Tell him I love him. Not one response. Not one. Now I understood why. She couldn't risk me showing up. Couldn't risk me asking questions. Couldn't risk me talking to his doctors. Because if I had, I might have found out what she was planning. Miss Ruth touched my shoulder gently. You want me to stay? No, I need to think. She nodded, squeezed my hand once, and let herself out. I sat there until the sun went down, staring at that receipt. At the date, at the delivery address, at the careful, calculated planning of it all. My son had been dying in a hospital bed, and his wife was ordering flowers, not hoping for the best, not praying for a miracle, ordering flowers. Like she already knew how the story would end. The receipt was just a piece of paper, but it was proof. Proof that grief wasn't the first thing she felt when Marcus died. Because you can't grieve something you've already planned for. She knew the date, before the rest of us, and that changes everything. The medical records arrived 2 weeks later. Patricia called me as soon as she got them. "Evelyn, you need to come to my office now." I drove there in silence, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. Her office was small but professional, files stacked neatly on shelves, a window overlooking Main Street. She was waiting for me with a thick folder on her desk. "Sit down," she said. I sat. She opened the folder and pulled out several pages, each one marked with yellow highlights. Marcus was admitted on October 8th with pneumonia, moderate severity but treatable. The initial prognosis was good. They started him on antibiotics and oxygen support, so he should have recovered. Yes, according to his doctor's notes, he was responding well to treatment. By October 12th, his oxygen levels were improving. They were talking about discharge within a few days. My heart started racing. What happened? Patricia slid another page across the desk. On October 13th, Tasha signed a DNR order, do not resuscitate. What? She told the doctors Marcus had expressed wishes not to be kept alive by artificial means. She said he wouldn't want aggressive intervention. That's not true. He never said that. Not to me. Did he have a living will? Any advance directives? No. He was 42 years old. He wasn't thinking about dying. Patricia nodded grimly. On October 14th, she refused a recommended treatment plan that would have included stronger antibiotics and possible ICU monitoring. The doctors noted their concerns in his chart, but legally, as his spouse, she had the right to make those decisions. I couldn't breathe. The room felt too small, too hot. She let him die. The records show that his condition deteriorated rapidly after the 14th. By the 18th, he was in respiratory distress. On the 19th, they recommended moving him to ICU. She refused. He died the next morning. Patricia pulled out one more document. And this is the death certificate. Cause of death, pneumonia with respiratory failure. But Evelyn, there's a note from the attending physician, an addendum filed 3 days after Marcus died. She slid it across the desk. I read it slowly, my hands shaking. Patient's decline was rapid and unexpected, given initial positive response to treatment. Family member, spouse, declined recommended interventions multiple times against medical advice. This physician notes concern regarding decision-making process and recommends review should questions arise regarding circumstances of death. I looked up at Patricia. The doctor thought something was wrong. Yes, but without a formal complaint or investigation, it went nowhere. Until now. What do? We file this with probate court. We show that Tasha made medical decisions that directly contributed to Marcus's death, decisions he never authorized. And we argue that someone who deliberately hastened a person's death should not be allowed to inherit from them. Will it work? Patricia leaned back in her chair. I've been a lawyer for 23 years. I've seen a lot of things. But this is one of the clearest cases I've ever seen of someone orchestrating a death for financial gain. She killed him. Patricia's face was careful, professional. I can't say that. Not legally. But I can say she made decisions that went against medical advice, that she refused treatments that could have saved him, and that she began planning his funeral before he was gone. And I can present all of that to a judge. I stood up, walked to the window, watched people walking down Main Street, carrying groceries, holding hands, living their normal lives. My son was gone because his wife decided he should be, and she'd been planning it all along. File everything, I said quietly. Every document, every receipt, every note. Evelyn, once we do this, there's no going back. This will become public. People will know, and Tasha will fight. I turned to face her. Good. Let her fight. Let everyone see what she did. Patricia nodded slowly. All right. I'll file the motion tomorrow. And Evelyn? We're going to win this. I drove home with the medical records in the passenger seat. I didn't cry. I was past crying now. I was in the part that comes after grief. The part where you stop asking why and start asking what next. Marcus had left me the will, the letters, the truth, and now I had the proof. The silence began to make sense. Every unanswered call, every locked gate, every lie about me being out of town. She hadn't been protecting herself from my grief. She'd been protecting herself from my questions. Because if I'd been there, I would have asked. I would have demanded to see him, to talk to his doctors, to understand why he was dying when he should have been healing. And she couldn't risk that. So she erased me. But erasure only works if no one's looking. And now everyone would be looking. I spent the weekend organizing everything, every document, every receipt, every piece of paper that told the story Marcus couldn't tell himself. I spread it all out on my dining room table and arranged it in chronological order, like chapters in a book, like evidence in a trial. Because that's what this was now, a trial. Not in the legal sense, not yet, but in the moral sense, the trial of Tasha Harris, by the truth. Patricia had told me the hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks from now, probate court, Judge Marianne Torres presiding. She's fair, Patricia had said. She doesn't tolerate nonsense, and she has a reputation for protecting the rights of parents when adult children's spouses try to cut them out. 3 weeks. 21 days to make sure every single piece was in place. I wasn't after revenge. I was after clarity. I wanted people to see what I'd seen, to know what I'd learned, to understand that my son hadn't just died. He'd been disappeared. On Monday, I called the hospital administrator. I'm the mother of Marcus Harris. He was a patient in your facility in October. I'm requesting copies of all visitor logs, all medical decision documentation, and all communications regarding his care. The woman on the phone sounded uncomfortable. Ma'am, we've already provided medical records to your attorney. I'm not asking for medical records. I'm asking for documentation showing who visited my son, when, and whether I was ever listed as restricted from visiting. There was a pause. That would require a formal request. Then consider this my formal request. I'll have my attorney follow up. I hung up before she could respond. Next, I called the bank again. Mr. Whitmore, I need records of every transaction on Marcus's accounts for the 6 months before his death. Every withdrawal, every transfer, every check written. Mrs. Harris, I'm not sure. My attorney will be filing a subpoena if necessary. But I thought I'd give you the courtesy of providing them voluntarily first. Another pause. I'll see what I can do. Thank you. I called the cemetery office, asked for records of when the plot was purchased, how it was paid for, and whether any other arrangements had been made in advance. I called Marcus's employer, the engineering firm where he'd worked for 15 years, asked if there had been any changes to his beneficiary designations in the months before his death. The HR director, a kind-sounding woman named Angela, called me back the next day. Mrs. Harris. I pulled his file. There were no changes to his beneficiary designations in the past 5 years. You're still listed as 50% beneficiary on his life insurance policy through the company. My breath caught. I am? Yes, ma'am. It's a policy worth $200,000, split 50-50 between you and his spouse. $200,000. Tasha hadn't gotten to that one yet. Has anyone tried to claim it? Mrs. Tasha Harris submitted a claim last week. She didn't mention you were also a beneficiary. Our policy is to notify all listed beneficiaries, so you should receive paperwork in the mail within a few days. Thank you, Angela. Mrs. Harris, I'm sorry for your loss. Marcus was a good man. Everyone here respected him. I hung up and sat very still. $200,000 that Tasha thought was all hers. But Marcus had made sure I was protected there too, even at work, even in the places she couldn't reach. He'd been planning for this, for her, for the day when she would try to take everything. By Wednesday, I had a banker's box full of documents, organized by category, labeled, indexed, medical records, financial records, witness statements, receipts, letters. The story of how my son died and how his wife tried to profit from it. Patricia came by to review everything. She sat at my dining room table for 2 hours, reading through each piece, making notes, asking questions. When she was done, she looked at me with something like awe. "Evelyn, this is ironclad. I've never seen a case this well documented. My son left me most of it. I just filled in the gaps. A judge is going to look at this and see exactly what happened. And Tasha's not going to have any defense. What do you think she'll do?" Patricia closed the file folder. "She'll try to settle, offer you something to make it go away quietly. But Evelyn, you need to decide now. Do you want justice or do you want money?" I thought about that for a long time. I want the truth on record. I want people to know what she did. I want Marcus's name cleared. Then we don't settle. We don't settle. Patricia smiled, a real smile, not a lawyer smile. Good, because I'm tired of people like her getting away with it. After she left, I sat alone at my dining room table, looking at all the pieces of my son's life spread out in front of me. His signature, his handwriting, his planning. He'd known she would do this, and he'd made sure I had the tools to fight back. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't screaming. I was just laying out the truth piece by piece until the whole picture became clear. And when that picture was complete, there would be nowhere left for Tasha to hide. I wasn't after revenge. I was after clarity. And in 3 weeks, everyone else would have it too. I went to Tasha's house on a Tuesday afternoon. Patricia had advised against it. "Let the court handle it," she'd said. "Don't give her ammunition." But I needed to look her in the eye, needed her to know that I knew. I parked on the street, walked up to the gate, the same gate that had been locked 2 weeks ago. This time, it was open. I walked up the front path and knocked on the door. She answered wearing yoga pants and a silk blouse, hair pulled back, face carefully composed. "Evelyn." Her voice was flat, unsurprised. "We need to talk. I don't think either we talk here or we talk in court on Thursday. Your choice." Her jaw tightened. She stepped back and let me in. The house looked the same. Same furniture, same paint. But it felt different, emptier, like Marcus had never lived there at all. We sat in the living room. She didn't offer me tea. I pulled the manila folder from my bag and set it on the coffee table between us. "What's that?" she asked. "Everything." I opened it slowly, pulled out the first document. "This is Marcus's will, the real one, notarized and filed with the county. You didn't know about it, did you?" Her face went pale. "He left you half of everything," I continued. "The house, the savings, the insurance, everything you've been spending and moving around for the past 3 weeks. Half of it's mine." "That's not, he wouldn't." I pulled out the second document. "This is the receipt from the flower shop. You ordered funeral flowers 5 days before he died." 5 days, Tasha. "How did you know?" The doctor said he was improving. His oxygen levels were stabilizing. They were talking about discharge. I pulled out the third document, the medical records. "This is the DNR order you signed, the treatment plan you refused, the ICU transfer you denied. You made decisions that went against medical advice, decisions that let him die. I was his wife. I had the right, you had the legal right, but you didn't have the moral right. Because he never told you he wanted that. Did he, Tasha?" She stood up, her hands shaking. "You don't know what it was like. You weren't there. He was suffering. I wasn't there because you didn't tell me. You buried him in secret. You locked me out. You told people I was out of town. I was protecting him. From what? From his mother? From the woman who raised him?" She turned away, walked to the window. "You never understood him. You never understood us." I stood up, walked closer. "No, Tasha. I understood him perfectly. That's why he left me the will. That's why he left me the letters. That's why he made sure you couldn't erase me." She spun around, her eyes blazing now. "He was weak. He couldn't make decisions. I had to." "You had to what? Control him? Isolate him? Kill him?" The word hung in the air like smoke. Her face drained of all color. "I didn't. That's not." I pulled out the last document, the note Marcus had left with Reverend Coleman. He knew what you were doing. He wrote it down, left it with the church. He said if he died under unclear circumstances, it should be shared with the authorities. I laid it on the coffee table. He knew, Tasha, and now everyone else will too. She sank down onto the couch, her hands covering her face. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. What do you want? She whispered. I want you to admit what you did. I can't. Then we'll see you in court. I gathered up the documents, slid them back into the folder. She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Evelyn, please, if this goes public, my job, my reputation, you should have thought about that before you buried my son in secret. I walked to the door, stopped, turned back. He loved you, you know. Despite everything. He told Reverend Coleman he loved you, but he didn't trust you, and he was right not to. I loved him too, she said, her voice breaking. Maybe you did, but love doesn't order flowers 5 days early. Love doesn't refuse medical treatment. Love doesn't lock the gate. I opened the door. See you in court, Tasha. I walked out into the afternoon sunlight, got in my car, and drove away. I didn't look back. In my rearview mirror, I saw her standing in the doorway, watching me leave. But I was done looking back. The folder was on my passenger seat. All the pieces, all the proof. She'd had her chance to tell the truth. Now the truth would tell itself. He wasn't supposed to leave that, but he did. And he wrote it by hand. And handwriting doesn't lie. The courthouse was cold. Stone floors, high ceilings, the kind of building designed to make you feel small. But I didn't feel small. Not anymore. I sat in the front row with Patricia on one side and Reverend Coleman on the other. Miss Ruth sat behind me, her hand resting on my shoulder. Tasha sat across the aisle with her lawyer, a sharp-dressed man with steel-gray hair and an expensive briefcase. She wouldn't look at me. Judge Torres entered, and we all stood. She was smaller than I'd imagined. Maybe 65, short gray hair, reading glasses on a chain. But when she looked at you, you felt it. Be seated, she said. This is a probate hearing regarding the estate of Marcus Anthony Harris, deceased October 20th, 2025. I've reviewed the preliminary documents. Mrs. Odom, you may proceed. Patricia stood. Your Honor, we're here today because Marcus Harris left a valid, notarized will that his widow, Tasha Harris, has chosen to ignore. Mr. Harris left 50% of his estate to his mother, Evelyn Harris, and yet Mrs. Tasha Harris has liquidated accounts, transferred assets, and claimed insurance benefits as though she were the sole beneficiary. Tasha's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client was unaware of any such will. She acted in good faith as the surviving spouse. With respect, Your Honor, Patricia interrupted. The will was filed with the county clerk's office 8 months ago. It's a matter of public record. Mrs. Tasha Harris's claim of ignorance is not credible. Judge Torres looked at Tasha. Mrs. Harris, did you attempt to locate your husband's will before liquidating his accounts? Tasha's lawyer whispered something to her. She cleared her throat. I assumed everything was in both our names. But you didn't verify? No, Your Honor. Judge Torres made a note. Continue, Mrs. Odom. Patricia pulled out the first exhibit. Your Honor, this is Marcus Harris's will, properly executed and notarized. Witness signatures include Reverend Thomas Coleman and Notary Public Andrea Pierce. It clearly states that 50% of all assets, properties, and benefits are to go to Evelyn Harris. She handed copies to the judge and to Tasha's lawyer. Furthermore, Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Tasha Harris not only knew about this will, but actively worked to circumvent it. That's speculation, Tasha's lawyer objected. It's evidence, Patricia countered. Exhibit B, a receipt from Blooms and Petals Flower Shop, dated October 15th, 2025, 5 days before Marcus Harris died, ordering funeral flowers for delivery on October 21st. A murmur rippled through the small courtroom. Judge Torres looked at the receipt. She ordered funeral flowers before he died? Yes, Your Honor, while Marcus Harris was still alive and, according to medical records, improving. Patricia pulled out the next exhibit. Exhibit C, Marcus Harris's medical records from Riverside General Hospital. These records show that on October 12th, Mr. Harris was responding well to treatment. His doctors were discussing discharge. But on October 13th, Mrs. Tasha Harris signed a DNR order. On October 14th, she refused recommended treatment that could have saved his life. On October 18th, she refused ICU transfer against medical advice. Tasha's face was white as paper. Her lawyer stood quickly. "Your Honor, a spouse has the legal right to make medical decisions. Unless," Patricia said firmly, "those decisions are made in bad faith for personal gain, and we believe that's exactly what happened here." She pulled out the next document. Exhibit D, a letter written by Marcus Harris and left with Reverend Coleman, expressing concern about his wife's controlling behavior and her threats regarding his finances and reputation. In this letter, Mr. Harris states that if he dies under unclear circumstances, it should be investigated. Judge Torres read the letter carefully. The courtroom was silent. Finally, she looked up. "Reverend Coleman, please approach." Reverend Coleman stood, walked to the witness stand, and was sworn in. "Reverend, did Marcus Harris leave this letter with you voluntarily?" "Yes, Your Honor. He came to my office 6 months ago. He was afraid. He said his wife had become controlling and that he felt trapped. He wanted to make sure his mother was protected if anything happened to him." "Did he express concern about his safety?" "Not directly. But he said, 'If something happens to me, don't let her erase my mother. And don't let her get away with it.'" The words landed like stones. Tasha was crying now, silent tears running down her face. Judge Torres looked at her for a long moment. "Mrs. Harris, do you have any documentation showing that your husband wanted you to be the sole beneficiary?" Her lawyer whispered to her again. "No, Your Honor." "Do you have any evidence that he verbally expressed wishes contrary to the written will?" "No, Your Honor." Judge Torres closed the file folder. "Then the will stands. All assets, properties, and benefits will be divided according to Marcus Harris's explicit written instructions, 50% to Evelyn Harris, 50% to Tasha Harris. Any assets already liquidated or transferred must be accounted for and divided accordingly." She looked at Tasha's lawyer. "Your client has 30 days to provide a full accounting of all assets, accounts, and benefits claimed since Mr. Harris's death. If Mrs. Evelyn Harris's share has been spent or hidden, your client will be personally liable for reimbursement plus penalties." "Your Honor, I'm not finished." Judge Torres's voice was sharp now. "I'm also ordering a review of Mr. Harris's medical records by an independent examiner. If there's any indication that medical decisions were made in bad faith or for financial gain, I'll refer this matter to the district attorney's office." The courtroom went completely silent. Tasha's face crumpled. She covered her mouth with her hand. Judge Torres looked at me. "Mrs. Evelyn Harris, I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry you had to fight for what was rightfully yours." "Thank you, Your Honor." She banged the gavel. "Court is adjourned." We all stood as she left. Patricia squeezed my arm. "You did it." I nodded. But I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired. Tasha walked past us without looking. Her lawyer had his hand on her elbow, guiding her toward the door. But as she reached the doorway, she stopped, turned, looked at me with eyes that were red and hollow and empty. "I did love him," she whispered. I held her gaze. "Then you should have let him live." She turned and walked out. Reverend Coleman touched my shoulder gently. "He'd be proud of you, Evelyn." "No," I said softly. "He'd be sad it came to this." We walked out into the bright autumn afternoon. The truth was on record now. Public. Permanent. This time, she was the one who heard the silence. And there was nothing left to say. Word spread fast. By the end of the week, everyone knew. Not just the church people, not just the neighbors. Everyone. Small towns are like that. Secrets don't stay secret long. And scandals? They travel faster than prayer requests. Tasha lost her job first. She worked at a law firm downtown, administrative, nothing high profile. But when the partners heard about the court hearing, about the medical decisions, and the funeral flowers ordered before Marcus died, they let her go. "Image concerns," they told her. At least, that's what I heard from Patricia, who heard it from someone who heard it from someone else. The House went next. Patricia filed a motion to freeze all jointly owned assets until the accounting was complete. That meant Tasha couldn't sell the house, couldn't refinance, couldn't touch the equity Marcus had built over 15 years. She tried to fight it. Her lawyer filed 3 different objections, but Judge Torres denied every one. Mrs. Harris has demonstrated a pattern of financial manipulation, the judge wrote in her ruling. Until a full and accurate accounting is provided, no jointly held assets shall be transferred or encumbered. Within 2 weeks, Tasha had moved out. I heard she was staying with her sister in the next county. I heard she'd hired a second lawyer. I heard she was telling people I'd orchestrated the whole thing, that I was vindictive, that I'd turned her into a villain. But nobody was listening anymore, because they'd all seen the documents. They'd all heard what happened in that courtroom. They'd all done the math. Funeral flowers ordered 5 days early, DNR signed when he was improving, accounts emptied the day after the burial. You can't spin that. You can't make that look like anything other than what it was. Miss Ruth told me about the whispers at church. They're not gossiping, baby, she said. They're just recognizing, like they're finally seeing something they'd been looking at for years but couldn't quite name. Mrs. Delgado, the neighbor, stopped me at the grocery store. I always thought something was off, she said quietly. The way she kept him away from people, the way she'd answer for him. I should have said something. It's not your fault, I told her. Maybe not, but I'll know better next time. The medical review came back in early December. An independent examiner reviewed Marcus's hospital records and concluded that while Tasha's decisions were legally permissible as spouse and healthcare proxy, they were medically inadvisable and inconsistent with the patient's prognosis and stated values. In other words, she had the right to do what she did, but it was wrong anyway. The report stopped short of calling it criminal, but it noted concerning patterns of decision-making that appeared to prioritize expedience over the patient's well-being. Patricia called me when she got the report. It's not enough for criminal charges, but it's enough to support our case in probate court, and it's enough to show that Marcus's concerns were valid. What happens now? Now Tasha's lawyers will recommend she settle, because if this goes to a full trial, everything becomes public record. Every document, every testimony, every terrible decision she made. And if she doesn't settle, then we go to trial, and we win. But it'll be uglier for her. 2 days later, Tasha's lawyer called Patricia with a settlement offer. Tasha would turn over Marcus's half of everything, the house equity, the remaining bank accounts, the insurance money, in exchange for me agreeing not to pursue any further legal action and signing a non-disclosure agreement. Patricia brought me the offer. What do you think? She asked. I read it carefully. It was a lot of money, enough to be comfortable, enough to not worry about the rest of my years. But it also meant silence. It meant agreeing to never talk about what happened, to never tell the full story, to let Tasha move on with her life as if none of this had ever been proven. No, I said. Patricia smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. I want the full accounting on record. I want every transaction documented. I want people to be able to see exactly what she did. And I don't want any gag order. Then we go to trial. The trial date was set for January 15th, but Tasha never made it that far. On January 2nd, she withdrew her objections, agreed to a full accounting, turned over everything Marcus had left, every dollar, every document, every piece of property, no non-disclosure agreement, no confidentiality clause, just the truth, on record, for anyone who wanted to see it. Patricia said Tasha's lawyer had probably told her she couldn't win, that the more they fought, the worse it would look, that the best thing she could do was cooperate and try to move on. The accounting showed that Tasha had taken almost $300,000 in the weeks after Marcus died. Bank accounts, insurance benefits, pension funds. She'd moved fast, transferred it all to accounts in her name, spent some of it already. My half came to $287,000 once everything was divided and accounted for. It was more money than I'd ever had in my life, but it felt like blood money, like I was being paid for my son's life. I didn't want it, but I took it, because Marcus had wanted me to have it, because he'd planned for it, because refusing it would have meant letting her keep what she'd stolen, and because, somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew I could do something good with it, something that honored Marcus's memory instead of just mourning it. By the end of January, it was over. The house was sold. The accounts were divided. The paperwork was filed and sealed. Tasha disappeared from Riverside. I heard she moved to Florida. Started over somewhere, nobody knew her name. I hope she finds peace someday. I really do. But I also hope she never forgets what she did, because I never will. The neighbors stopped whispering. The church stopped speculating. Life went on, but it went on differently now. People treated me with a new kind of respect. Not pity, not sympathy, just recognition. Recognition that I'd stood up for my son when no one else could. That I'd fought for truth when it would have been easier to stay silent. That I'd proven you don't need to scream to be heard. You just need receipts. She tried to erase my name, and lost her own, and sometimes that's what justice looks like. I went back to the cemetery on a Tuesday morning in February. The ground had thawed a little. The grass was trying to grow back over the raw earth where they'd buried Marcus 4 months ago. The headstone was still the same. Marcus Anthony Harris, 1983, 2025. Beloved husband. I stood there for a long time, just looking at it. Then I pulled out my phone and called the monument company. I'd like to add an inscription, I said, to an existing stone. The man on the phone was kind, professional. Do you own the plot, ma'am? I do now. It had been part of the settlement. The cemetery plot, the rights to the grave, everything. Tasha had signed it over without a fight. Maybe because she knew she'd already lost. Or maybe because she couldn't stand to think about it anymore. Either way, it was mine now. What would you like the inscription to say? I'd been thinking about this for weeks, trying to find the right words, words that honored who Marcus really was, not just who he'd been to Tasha. Below the existing inscription, I wanted to say, devoted son, cherished by Evelyn Harris, his mother, forever loved, forever remembered. That's beautiful, ma'am. When would you like us to do the work? As soon as possible. We can have it done by next week. I stood there after I hung up, imagining what it would look like, both truths on the same stone. Husband and son, not erased, not forgotten, complete. The wind picked up, rustling through the bare branches overhead. I knelt down and placed my hand on the cold granite. I did it, baby, I whispered. I made sure you're remembered the right way, the whole way. I'd brought flowers this time. White lilies, the same ones Tasha had ordered. But these were from me, bought with my own money, chosen with my own hands. I arranged them carefully at the base of the stone. I'm not angry anymore, I said softly. I'm just tired and sad and grateful I had you for as long as I did. I pulled out the letter he'd written, the one I'd found in the envelope all those months ago. I'd been carrying it in my purse ever since. I read it one more time. His handwriting, his words, his love. You're the only person who ever loved me without conditions. I folded it carefully and slipped it back into my purse. I wasn't going to leave it at the grave. It wasn't for the ground. It was for me. A reminder that even when everything else was taken, love remained. And truth remained. And that was enough. I stood up, brushed the dirt from my knees, and looked at the headstone one more time. Next week, it would be complete. Next week, anyone who visited would know the full story. Not just the husband who died, but the son who was loved. The son who'd never been forgotten. The son who'd made sure his mother would be okay, even after he was gone. I walked back to my car slowly, taking my time. The cemetery was quiet, peaceful. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty, just still. When I got home, I sat at my kitchen table and opened the wooden box where I kept all of Marcus's letters and documents. Everything was there. The will, the medical records, the receipts, the accounting, the whole story, preserved. I didn't need to look at it anymore. I'd lived it. I'd fought through it. I'd survived it. But I kept it anyway. Because someday, someone might need to know. Someday, another mother might find herself locked out of her own child's life. And she might need to know that she's not powerless, that she can fight back, that the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be documented. I closed the box and put it back in my dresser drawer. Then I made myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the afternoon light fade into evening. My son was gone. That would never change. But he wasn't erased. His name was on that stone. His love was in that letter. His protection was in that will. And his mother was still here, still standing, still breathing, still remembering. Now he rests, and so do I. Not because the pain is gone, but because the truth has been told. And sometimes, that's the only peace we get. It's been 6 months now. Spring came and went. Summer's here. The lilies I planted at Marcus's grave are blooming, white and perfect, just like he deserves. I visit twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays. I bring fresh flowers, sit for a while, tell him about my week, about Miss Ruth's granddaughter's wedding, about the potluck at church, about the new bookstore downtown that sells the kind of mystery novels he used to love. Small things, normal things, the kind of things you tell someone you love. The headstone is beautiful now. Complete. Marcus, Anthony Harris, 1983, 2025. Beloved husband, devoted son, cherished by Evelyn Harris, his mother forever loved, forever remembered. People stop sometimes when they walk by, read it, nod quietly. A few have even left flowers. I don't know who they are. Maybe people from his work, maybe old friends. Maybe just strangers who read the inscription and felt something. It doesn't matter. What matters is that they know. They know he was loved. They know he mattered. They know he wasn't just anyone's anything. He was his own person, with his own story. And now that story is told the right way. The money Marcus left me sits in an account I opened in both our names, Evelyn and Marcus Harris Memorial Fund. I've been thinking about what to do with it. Miss Ruth suggested a scholarship, something for young people who want to study engineering, like Marcus did. Reverend Coleman suggested a fund for families dealing with end-of-life care disputes, help them get legal representation when they need it most. Both are good ideas. I'm still deciding, but whatever I choose, it'll honor him. It'll help people. It'll make sure his death meant something more than just loss. I don't think about Tasha much anymore. Sometimes I wonder where she is, if she's okay, if she ever thinks about what she did. But mostly, I just let it go. Not because I forgive her. I'm not there yet. Maybe I never will be. But because holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. Marcus wouldn't want that for me. He'd want me to live, to breathe, to find peace in the small things. So that's what I'm trying to do. This morning, I cleaned out my bedroom closet, found some of Marcus's old things I'd been storing, his high school Letterman jacket, his college textbooks, a photo album from when he was little. I sat on the floor and went through it all, remembering. Him at 5, missing his front teeth, grinning at the camera. Him at 12, awkward and gangly, standing next to me at his middle school graduation. Him at 22, college diploma in hand, so proud and so ready to take on the world. I cried a little, but they were good tears, the kind that feel like release instead of drowning. When I was done, I packed everything carefully into a box, labeled it, stored it in the hall closet where I can reach it whenever I need to. Then I went to my dresser, opened the top drawer, looked at the wooden box one more time. The envelope Marcus had given me all those months ago sat on top, empty now. The letter inside it had served its purpose. I picked it up, ran my fingers over the worn paper, and then I did something I hadn't been able to do before. I threw it away, not the letter, not the documents, not the proof, just the empty envelope. Because I didn't need it anymore. The truth was out. The fight was over. Justice, imperfect and incomplete, but justice nonetheless, had been done. And I was still here. 68 years old, retired English teacher, mother of one beautiful, complicated, gone-too-soon son, and survivor. I closed the drawer, locked it, put the key in my jewelry box where it belongs. Then I made myself breakfast, poured a cup of coffee, and sat on my back porch watching the birds. The world kept turning. The sun kept rising. Life kept happening. And I was part of it. Not the sad part, not the tragic part, not the bitter, broken part. Just the part that keeps going, that keeps loving, keeps remembering, keeps choosing peace over anger and truth over silence. Later today, Miss Ruth and I are going to lunch. Then we're going to the bookstore. Then maybe the movies, normal things, simple things, good things. Marcus would like that. He'd want me to be okay. And I am. Finally. In the way that matters. Not because everything's perfect. It's not. Not because the pain is gone. It isn't. But because I did what he asked me to do. I didn't scream. I didn't shout. I didn't lose myself in the grief or the anger or the injustice of it all. I just showed the proof, document by document, truth by truth, signature by signature, and that was enough. I lock the drawer again every night before bed. The envelope is empty now, but the lesson remains. At my age, I don't scream. I document. And when I'm gone, when someone else opens that drawer someday, maybe a niece, maybe a neighbor, maybe just someone cleaning out an old lady's house, they'll find the story. They'll find the will, the letters, the medical records, the accounting. And they'll know that Marcus was loved, that his mother fought for him, that truth doesn't need volume to be heard. It just needs patience and proof, and a mother who refuses to let her child be erased. I didn't shout. I just showed the receipts. And in the end, that was louder than anything else could have been. At my age, I don't scream. I document. If this story gave you strength, help us by sharing, liking, and hitting the notification bell. We'd love to hear in the comments which part of the story you liked most. See you tomorrow.